Of the Buhl City Council on June 15th, 2021. Ryan, please take the roll.
Councilor Carter. Here. Councilor Lehman. Here. Councilor Marcus. Here. Mayor Claridge.
Here. Public hearing on the fire hall expansion.
This is just required in case the city decides to borrow or bond for that expansion. We're required to have a public hearing. It was posted in our official publication. As I expected, there are no attendees, so we can move on.
Anything, that's all you had to say about it? Okay. It's our option, right?
Yeah, it's our option. There's another resolution on the agenda that
will cover.
That gives the initial preliminary go-ahead in case that's needed.
Reports from department heads. Trent, you got anything?
I didn't really plan anything, but
well, you can update us on anything you want to.
I'll just talk about the water pressure issues that we had.
That'd be great.
Last time. So we had this problem about 3 years ago. It has to do with the electrical components inside our water tower. It's sensitive equipment, and so something's going on where the voltage drops. And when this happened about 3 years ago, we had Minnesota Power come in. They put in recorders that kind of try to track to see if there's any events that go on. Well, as soon as we put the recorders on, the problems never happened again up until basically I think there was one event last week. I believe it was last week.
2 weeks ago.
Or 2 weeks ago, okay. And then, then yesterday's. So Minnesota Power's coming back in. They're going to put the recorders on, and hopefully we have another event. The vents, but so when this happened 3 years ago, you guys maybe remember only one time. Well, we actually had probably like 20 events, but you guys just never noticed it. So it happens, and it won't lose the pressure if we catch it one time. It's just yesterday's event. It had to have happened shortly after we'd already checked the pumps in the morning, because you have to physically go in and manually shut it all off and reset it. Which doesn't take long. That's why when it happens, Lyle's in town, he's able to run over real quick and reset everything. It only takes 20 minutes, so if it happens again, someone's around, it doesn't take very long for the pressure to get back up.
Nothing to do with our construction at all?
No, it has nothing to do with construction.
I think that's good to have that out there, so.
They got a lot of, I'm trying to use the correct word. They just got a lot of trouble from other people in town. It had nothing to do with Casper.
Okay.
What did, how are you alarmed to it? Is it just?
We don't have, so that was actually when it happened 3 years ago. We had talked about putting an auto dialer in there, but then we had a problem with another auto dialer. So the auto dialer that we had bought, we ended up putting into our lift station, and so they just never got around to putting the auto dialer into our system.
But so like the last 2 weeks, the water pressure's gone low, and then Lyle's just figured it out and they ran up there?
Yeah, basically, someone gives us a call right away. Lyle's in town, so and he's got lots of kids, so they use water a lot. So he can tell when the water pressure's down. He got up there quickly, and so it's...
Like I said, years ago it happened, but it happened like at night. Nobody's using water, so the water tank will, it's got the pressure to supply the city. But even though they got there in the morning, they found out it was kicked out, they had to reset it. But when it happens at 4 or 5 o'clock, everybody's coming home from work, cooking. A lot of people take their showers then. And
with Casper in town, they're pumping and using some extra water for their construction.
Okay.
So had they not been in town, no one had ever known that the problem would happen.
Okay.
But it's just, we're working on it. Minnesota Power's coming in this week, putting recorders on. And like I said, hopefully it happens again, so then that gives us an idea of what the problem is. And I'll just touch on, so 3 years ago when it was happening, Minnesota Power had found that some of their, they fixed some insulators that were cracked. And after they did that, the problem went away, so it could potentially just be on Minnesota Power's end, which we'll find out with these recorders. if it happens again.
They're gonna watch the voltage on it or what?
Yeah, the recorders, I don't know exactly what kind of data that the recorders give, but they give something real and they understand the stuff. I've never looked at the data that the recorder gives out.
Well, you'll have a report for us next time or after that.
Hopefully it doesn't happen ever again. But
No, but I mean with what MP, Minnesota Power says.
yeah, well, we might not get a report at all if
Till, yeah, 2 months, whatever.
How long are they gonna keep them recorders on?
Oh, last time we kept them on for 3 months, but then they needed them for another project. So it all depends on if they need them or not.
Okay. Well, we'll see what happens. I'm glad you're on top of it.
Well, since we're having issues, should we designate a number for the people in town to call if there's an issue?
Oh,
Or
they
do you
always
think?
call me.
Okay, all right,
So a lot of people have the number.
all right, good. I don't have your number, you know, I wouldn't know what to do myself,
They
so.
call it, when you call City Hall,
Look in the pit.
it comes up on the voicemail, no one's.
Not anymore.
Want to see you do that in
I called there
February.
Yeah.
last time and it didn't.
Oh, okay. Well,
So no, you can't, nobody's getting your number anymore.
well, the best way to do it, I put it out there, is call you guys, and you guys can call me.
Well, it'll be interesting this summer.
A lot of people have my
Visit.
number,
Yeah, you
so I
get.
get the calls and then
And I usually get a lot of calls.
Well, I'm just gonna say call Marcus.
yeah.
And then if I get it, I call Ryan.
And just for residents' sake, I know a lot of people don't like to dial 911, but that's a good, if some issue's happening, call 911, they'll get a hold of Chisholm PD, and they have our direct contacts too.
Boy, that would have to be a big before you call 911 on just low water pressure. I
Well,
don't
does-
think that justifies it, to be honest.
So even the county for issues like that, tell residents
I would
to call
call
911.
911. There's a
Yeah,
problem,
they-
call 911.
Chisholm PD calls me.
Because they're gonna get hold of fire department or PD or something like that.
Does
Give
Chisholm,
me your number.
does Chisholm PD have a 24-hour number? Or does it have to go through like the emergency
I mean, they
number?
have their office number that I'm sure there's a voicemail set up, but
Okay.
911, dispatch,
Okay,
you know, even the non-emergency line that St. Louis County dispatch has offered, it's the same people you're talking to that are handling the 911 calls.
The county sheriff's office, they have my number also, they've called me in the past too, so.
it seems to get corrected pretty fast just from word of mouth.
And Stuart's our watchdog on all things Buhl, I guess. Just saying.
I just throw it out there that,
Well, I'm glad you do. I mean,
you know, so
gotta
people
let them know
aren't
that.
going, oh, I don't know where, I don't know where.
Okay, anything else? Well, thank you. Okay, council additions to the agenda. I have 2 items. I'm gonna call the first one R1, so it'll be towards the end of the agenda. It will be a councilor resignation. Then we have R2, will be a special council meeting concerning Minnesota Power. I have nothing. Ryan, is there anything else that you can think of? Any?
Nope.
Okay, without that, is there a motion to approve the agenda with the 2 additions as presented?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Stuart, is there support?
Support?
Support by Brandon. Further comment or discussion? Hearing none. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Parrish?
Yes. We'll now move on to the consent agenda. 6A, the minutes of the regular city council meeting of June 1st, 2021. 6B, claims, payroll number 12, $13,346.51, and accounts payable, $95,543.71, for a total of $108,890.22. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Also move that we support the meeting of June 1st, 2021, and the claims of $108,890.22.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Stuart. Further comment, question, or discussion? Hearing none. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Parrish?
Yes. Motion carried. Okay, now we'll get into our regular business affairs. First thing is the CIP update. John, welcome.
Thank you. They've been continuing to work, of course, on the project. A lot of concrete work, flat work was done on our sidewalks in the last week and a half or so. They're grading, focusing on all the streets, north of Pennsylvania Avenue. They were scheduled to pave today, but the latest update I got, it's gonna be Thursday. So you can see they're grading the roads, they're getting them all ready for paving. It looks like Thursday is gonna be.
Thursday and Friday, just Thursday? What?
Well, no, I think they wanna get Pennsylvania State done for sure. Probably Jones, I don't think, mine's gonna be quite ready, and maybe some of Mercer may not be ready, but
Okay.
they're working on it. But the primary is Pennsylvania and State and Jones, so that's where they're.
When do you think they could get to Mercer and mine, in a week or so, or?
Well, yeah, when it gets ready, I mean,
Yeah, and you want to have enough for them to pave too, you don't have just one little small area to
well,
tie up all
everything on
that.
this part of, side of town, it's about 2 days worth of paving to put the
Okay.
first layer down. So,
Okay.
I'm hoping they'd get it. And they're working on it,
Well, the people are waiting with bated breath to get this done, I'll tell you.
yeah.
So when you say Pennsylvania, do you mean all the way
No, from
shortstop.
mine up to,
up to Forest?
Forest.
Okay.
and then the next thing that Casper's gonna work on is start working on the county road, which is Pennsylvania Avenue from Forest going
Okay.
east towards Monmouth. And as the city's got a water line that needs to be done there. Casper's gonna do on the France addition, France location.
What are they going to do?
They're gonna do the water line in France
Okay,
location. They've got a few miscellaneous alleys and things to do, but otherwise they've got, most of the pipe is done on the north side of the project in north of Pennsylvania, so.
and then Whiteside, and Woodbridge, those projects will start July, August.
I would assume right after the 4th of July. They want to
Okay.
get everything.
And I like that, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think, they hit it hard with 3 crews in town for a long time.
Oh, yes.
Now they're gonna kind of slow down probably to 2, and just, there's a lot of utility work to do in the alleys by Whiteside and Woodridge area down there, and then the street work too.
You brought up a very favorite subject of mine right now. I had a talk with a citizen today that lives on Whiteside, whose alley is, she told me that it was paved because Paul Keekly did it, and I think it's cement, and I don't know when it was done. And she said, "Are you going to replace that?" I said, "I can't answer that. I don't know what the bid spec, I don't know what we did." I know we're meeting again Thursday, but is there anything we can say right now about that? Would we replace that? I think it's cement, I'm not sure.
Talking about the one between Whiteside and Woodbridge? That
Yeah,
alley?
I believe
Yeah,
it's yours.
yeah, right behind the old Pervenans.
Isn't there cement in there, John? They just covered up with blacktop to make it smooth a few years ago?
Yeah, the people on that block, I remember, they petitioned it. I remember this now, they petitioned by themselves to have it done and they paid for it themselves. It wasn't even, city wasn't even involved. So.
But there is concrete in some of those alleys.
Oh, yeah, the first 2 have,
Yeah.
But we didn't
Pieces
bid
of-
anything to replace anything, correct?
We were gonna just put the blacktop back, because it was overlaid with blacktop, some of them, the blacktop wasn't there. Maybe there was, I think, 2 streets or 2 alleys that
Okay,
still had the concrete, but some of them have an overlay of blacktop or
Okay.
bituminous on them, so.
well, I'm not sure, Attorney Carney, you may be getting involved in this one for us, I'm not sure, but if people come back and complain, so we'll have to play that one as it goes, as it proceeds, correct?
Yeah, we can look at that.
Yep, okay,
Yeah.
I'd like
well, you
to,
said you have plans just to blacktop it.
Yeah, we were gonna subcut it,
Yeah,
put the class 5 in, and then put bituminous on
yeah.
it.
So
And it was-
they're gonna cap it anyhow,
okay, well, I don't know, and I just want to make sure because,
but I remember. it was-
Some alleys that were gravel, we're putting them back as gravel.
okay,
Yeah.
They were
and which
paved,
should be,
put it back as paved.
perfect, okay.
And then that, you're right, I think we talked about that we're planning this thing.
Okay, I couldn't remember, so.
Yeah, the one north of that had some
But if there's something
concrete,
we
but
can look at it.
Okay, well, thanks, that, you explained it perfectly, so I'm happy with that. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's
Continue.
that's about all I had.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have a question. These temporary water lines, are those PVC that they run off the hydrants? And if they come across a street, they put sand or dirt over it so the cars don't crush it. Some of these are crossing people's sidewalks from their home to the city sidewalk there. Are they notified? Is there? I work in the taconite plants all the time. I look at it as a tripping hazard, is what I'm getting at, you know? I mean,
oh, you mean the temporary lanes?
yeah.
Yeah.
If they're ran across,
Well, just on the highway,
They try to bury them, cover them with dirt. Some
yeah.
of them have signs in front of them, but you're right, some of them may.
I was driving through town and I,
Lay the terrain, they just really much can do it just to.
But they were notified of that, right?
Well, everybody was notified about the temporary water process. I don't know how much they discussed them crossing sidewalks and things like that, but.
well, I mean, if they were to lay one out without discussing with the homeowner and somebody's wheelchair bound, now they come out of their home and there's a line across the sidewalk, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe if they're laying them, give a knock on the door, say, hey.
If anybody had a problem, they'd call City Hall. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Casper's been pretty good, you know, I think
Certain
getting in touch with Trent.
situations, they actually made ramps
Okay.
for handicap purposes.
Okay, I was just curious because I saw them running across people's sidewalks to their homes and I thought, you know.
Good question. And those will be done here pretty quick, you know, I mean, we'll start eliminating some of that.
In between, the engineer and I will work on with Casper to getting an updated schedule out to the residents that goes into July here, so.
Are they on schedule, John?
Yeah, I think so.
From the previous schedule?
Yeah, I think they are. You know, we're gonna have a meeting, we have a meeting every Thursday. And, get an updated schedule from them.
They've had good weather.
Yeah, it's been pretty, and they've had 3 crews going, you know, they had 3 pipe laying crews, a restoration crew, and then, you know, the subcontractor, they poured a lot of concrete in the last couple of weeks.
Is the concrete done?
Pardon me?
Is the concrete done?
No, they're still working on
A
it,
little bit?
yeah.
And then on the people's property, another constituent asked me, you know, if they put the sidewalk here and there's their yard and there's still dug out there where they formed up and everything, that gets put back to normal with the dirt and grass, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
I told her that and she seems very satisfied. She was, I just want to know.
What we tried to do was, there used to be like a little bit of a boulevard between the curb and the sidewalk. As many as we could, we pushed the sidewalk up against the curb so we don't have that little
Yeah, I like that,
boulevard
yeah.
left.
Yep, that's great, yep.
I mean, there was some that we couldn't do that.
Well, we ended up in your, I got someone scurrying where,
Hey, why didn't you get it?
it was from him. Okay, I'm sorry. Anything else, John? Well, thank you. Any questions, final questions? Okay. If not, then that was informational only. So next, we have the JPJ invoice number 13. Attaches JPJ invoice number 13. Engineer Jamnik will be here available to answer any questions. Is there a motion to approve the JPJ invoice number 13 in the amount of $50,337.23? I'll make the motion. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Brandon. Okay, further comment, question, or discussion? Hearing none. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Birch?
Yes, motion is carried. At least we pay you for your services, John. Okay, next on the agenda is number 7C, pay application number 6. Attached is pay application number 6 from Casper Engineer Jamnik will be available to answer any questions. A motion to approve pay application number 6 in the amount of $576,058.25. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Stuart, is there support?
Support.
Support by John. Comments or questions, council? John, anything we should know? It's standard, right? It's part of the contract?
40% of the total contract, so
Okay,
about 40% done.
okay. I'll be happy when you're saying it's 80% done. But okay, hearing no questions, Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Whitman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes, motion is carried. 7D, all right, the audit presentation. Well, Bonnie, welcome to the board, and we'll listen for you. We all have our stuff in front of us here, so.
Okay, so you should have a large packet and a couple smaller letters. I'm gonna start with the large packet tonight. You can see that booklet gets thicker and thicker, I think, every year. And this year it's pushing 70 pages. I'm going to just pull out a few highlighted items out of each one of those, through the report. At any time, if you have any questions, feel free just to
I like
ask
your
your
bonds.
Okay. I'll listen through that. Thanks, John. We're just going to pull into the big booklet and just take a quick look at the table of contents. Because it's 70 pages, there are a lot of sections into the audit report. We've talked in the past that the audit report actually has two presentation methods within this bound report. There's the government-wide, you'll see that under the basic financial statements. We're going to talk about those for a few minutes. Those are in the full accrual. Those are the ones that bring in your fixed assets, your capital assets, all of your debt. It's really based as close to a commercial reporting entity as possible. So that's one of the presentation we'll talk about. And then you'll see the fund financial statements. And that's what you're used to seeing on a day-to-day basis. It's a shorter term period, generally looking at within 60 days of year end. That's how we report accruals, capital assets are booked on and depreciated through that method. They're expensed off. So I want to just put that into context. And then this section, on the next page, you'll see a new section this year is called the single audit report. And because the city of Buhl had expended more than $750,000 in federal funds, you were required to have an additional component to your normal audit procedures, which are performed, and that's called the uniform guidance audit. So there's additional specific reporting requirements and testing that we have to do to report on federal fund usage, and we'll get into that section a little bit more. So again, just flip one more page in, and I promise I'm not going page by page, but we will get to the independent auditors.
You lost us all.
The independent auditors report, and I'm pleased to present that in our opinion, we've provided a clean audit opinion to the city of Buhl, or what we call an unmodified report. So in our opinion, these financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles.
I guess we have Diana and Ryan to thank for helping you and keeping the things clean. Okay.
They are, and there were just a few proposed entries that came through, not many at all, and so those, Diana has them in the office, and so it is an attestation of somewhat on when the audit process comes in on how clean the records are, and we don't typically have a lot of proposed entries to do. Then I'm going to flip you all the way to page 15. So 15 is this government-wide perspective. And it's this bird's eye view is the best way that I sometimes refer to it as. It's a very high-level presentation, and the city of Buhl's financials are actually put into a couple buckets. It's the business-type activities, which are going to be your water, sewer, your garbage, your electric. It's all of those type of activities combined into one. You'll see we have more detail in the back. The further back you go into the report, the more detail you get. Those are supposed to be based on user fees. Those are should cover, based on the user fees, all your operating costs. And we'll highlight that when we get into the page just a little further on. But the governmental activities, I want to point out that the city of Buhl, as of December 31st, 2020, had total assets of a little over 12 million. And of that 12 million, 4.4 of it was in liquid between cash, savings, CDs, investments. And then the other bulk of that 12 million is the 7.2 million in capital assets, and that's net of depreciation. So that's your buildings, your streets, the projects that you're doing now, all of those get captured and recognized in these fund statements. So you have, on one side of the equation, you have a little over 12 million for the city. But if we flip to the next page, you owe. So the city of Buhl does have some liabilities against that 12 million. The first line, that current portion of long-term debt, you'll see under the first column of governmental activities, a little over 20,000. The city of Buhl really has, and there's a footnote later on, very little in actual debt outside of the new infrastructure projects that you're doing now. So you had 20,000 at the end of December of 2020. There was a final payment, a little over $5,000, that was for your street sweeper that will get paid off. And then there was a final $15,000 in a debt for your 1997 TIF project. So once those get paid off in 2021 now, the only other new debt you'll have obviously is doing with all the big infrastructure projects you're dealing. So you'll see that 1.2 million under the business type activities. That's the drawdown that you've done on your interim financing as of the end of the year for the infrastructure projects that you started in 2020.
Next year, we'll have two other new ones. We have the fire truck and we'll have the grader, I believe. So, I mean, we're spending a little bit, but we're still well within our parameters of our assets.
Right, and when we get into the fund-based structure and we start looking at your general fund balance, you'll see where you are as far as how healthy your fund balance status is when we get to there. So that current portion of long-term debt is a little higher than you typically have, only because that 1.2 million was an interim finance, will be refinanced once the projects are done into a longer-term debt payment schedule. But under the non-current liabilities, these are the four that we do talk about every year. These are the ones that are liabilities and recognition for the city of Buhl that aren't recorded in the fund-based statements. So we have things like compensated absences. That's the estimate of your severance package that you owe to your current employees based on the sick leave as of the end of the year. So there's a $25,280 valuation for that. Then you see your other post-employment benefit, or OPEB. That's the one that started a few years ago. You have an actuarial study done, and they have estimated that as of December 31st, there's a $693,444 estimated OPEB liability. That's your commitment that you've made for your current employees and retirees for post-employment benefits, so your health and the dental costs of carrying that. The city of Buhl has continually for several years when the OPEB came out, it does not require funding. The standards don't require you to fund it. But Buhl typically has always budgeted $13,000 a year against this, where you transfer from the different funds into your internal service fund. And so as of the end of the year, there was about just shy of $178,000 built up in your internal service fund to help fund this, so it's about 25% funded. Just keep in mind, there's no requirement to have it funded. Some communities went out and would do trusts and things like that. You did set aside and commit funds, so you're about 25% funded as of the end of the year.
Did we have the ability to go out and bond for that under the law, quite a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago? That was an option, but the city decided not to do that. Okay.
Right.
But then you're paying here, you're paying there, so.
Yeah, you're called, right now it's pay as you go. Typically, you're just paying the current costs when you're doing your budgets, and they're putting retiree costs into your budgets. You're paying as you go, you're funding it. If you had to come up with the liability, that's what your actuaries have done at this point, is that $693,000 is what you would have owed as, in other words, if the city would have closed its doors on December 31st, you would have had to, over the course of estimated lives and the nature of the employees that you had, there would have been a liability of $693,000.
In dealing with school districts before, in another city, this is a small number for a OPEB liability. School districts are in the $6 to $50 million range, and in larger cities are the same. So I think this is very manageable and something that shouldn't upset the councilors and/or the public.
Right, and the city of Buhl also has been very proactive. The OPEB calculation can be modified and changed based on if you come to agreements on coming up with creative ways to keep your health insurance costs down, and Buhl did that. So over the course of the year, you even, for the course of the last few years, have been able to even bring that liability down. So $693,000 based on what it is, like you said, is, and being 25%, funded at that point is not bad. That's more typical than what we see.
I know the current pool that we're in right now, city, county, and other government, they will start negotiating again in July, and they've come up with a new carrier. America's come in like 10 to 20% cheaper than the current Blue Cross.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see, because they'll both be negotiating with us, I guess.
And so the $693,000, the OPEB, is something that the city council, the employees, retirees, they all have a way of managing and coming into agreement to look at that liability. If you slide two lines down to the net pension liability, that is showing at $257,805. Now that's your actuarially determined proportionate share for your participation in PARA. So that's the PERA. What happened a couple years back is that they wanted each of the cities who are participants in PARA. PARA is a cost-sharing defined benefit pension plan, which City of Buhl is a participant in. And what they wanted to do is have cities recognize that you have a responsibility for your proportionate share of that liability that PARA has for your participants and retirees. So that's $257,000. Unlike OPEB, there's not a whole lot you can do to modify that, because you're a participant in it. They set the rates, they determine how much you contribute every year, but it is your proportionate share.
But that's standardized across the whole state for all the entities that belong to PARA. So I don't take this right. It's not a necessary evil, but it's negotiated with the state and with all of the entities.
But the idea, you can see what's happened with these government-wide statements over the last few years is trying to bring in some of these liabilities and recognize that really we're not, cities typically had looked at budgets for 1 year at a time. And they started saying, well, like commercial entities, you really have assets, and you should be looking at depreciation, so if you need to replace those assets down the road, or with liabilities. There was this recognition that you have employees right now that are providing services. And there's an exchange that goes on with that. Cities will pay for wages and health insurance currently, but there's also that piece that the city continues to pay once that employee retires. And so it's really recognizing, even though you're going to pay it to them when they retire, it's really trying to recognize that exchange, the cost in the current period. So that's what all of these accruals are trying to come back to do. So those, you'll see your total non-current liabilities for the city as a whole was $976,529. So if you slide down to your net position, so we look at what were your total assets, a little over 12 million, what are your liabilities? It still leaves you with a total net position, again on this full accrual method of reporting, of a little over $9.5 million. You'll see that on the total net position. Some of that piece, though, 5.8 of it is again in your infrastructure. It's not spendable. It's in buildings and roads. There's 125,000 of it that is restricted. We'll talk in a minute again about some fund balance that are sitting in your debt service funds. So it really left 3.6 million. So despite the fact that you're picking up these liabilities for OPEB and for net pension liabilities, and for your debt, you still have assets that exceeded that. Many communities do not. Many communities are seeing deficits on that. In other words, they have aging infrastructure, they have all kinds of things that aren't at historical cost enough to cover some of these other debts. So that's the full accrual basis. I just want to bring page 18 real quick and just highlight one of the things.
Could we step back for a minute on 16?
Yeah.
So this project we have now with the sewer and water, does that affect any of this in the future, these numbers?
It will,
Okay.
because you'll have carrying costs with that. And so
Okay.
once that debt gets finalized, you're going to have your cash outflow for the principal, but you'll also be recognizing carrying costs and interest.
Okay.
And you will also be recognizing depreciation on those new assets that are being put into it. I've had lots of conversations between Diana and Ryan, because it's very important, and working with your engineers. When this projects like this are done in a community, it's very important that we're able to identify the pieces that are water, the pieces that are sewer, and the pieces that are the infrastructure, the sidewalks, because they get handled differently in your financial reports, and depreciation gets factored over the course of 40 or 50 years, or the estimated lives for those lines. So it will impact, but you're going to see when we talk about, when we get into the detail of the enterprise funds, Buhl has also been very proactive when you've brought in people to look at your rate structures. And so the other thing that you've done is you've put in a rate structure that is adequate, or has been in the past, to cover depreciation. So you're going to see that. That's also not something we typically see in some of the communities we deal with.
But that's what you strive for, and that's what you recommend we do.
Absolutely.
So we're on the right path here.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely, because those are enterprise, and they're enterprise funds. They're supposed to be self-sufficient based on user fees. And that includes depreciation, so that when the lines need to have either repairs or be replaced, you've got enough into your fund balance or your net position to be able to replace those. You know, you may not always be able to have IRRP funding or come up with some of these other funding packages for it, so it really is, the city needs to prepare for things like that.
Well, we're a step ahead of the game with what we've proactively done in the last couple of years. so.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
So on page 18, I just want to highlight, one of the things you'll see lost on the disposal of a capital asset. One of the things that occurs when you have a full accrual set of statements like this is if you do sell an asset that is less than what you had as far as your historical cost and depreciation, there's a recognized loss. We're on page 18. In 2020, obviously the biggest significant asset that was sold that created a loss was the school. And so, you know, if you remember back, there was the building itself, but there was a roof that was put onto it, you know, at a cost of $1 million. And so some of that was still in your books, depreciated out, had a basis on it. So when you sold that, we recognized those assets get removed. So there's a recognized loss of 877. Now, that's not all the schools. Some of that is land. You sold parcels of property in town. You did some of that, and so some of those, the cost of that property is on your books higher than what it was sold for. So I just want to highlight that point out. Okay. Now we're just going to move quickly and talk about a couple of items in your fund-based statements. So page 19. Believe me, we'll go much quicker. I think one of the single most important numbers, we talk about this every year, that is useful to kind of gauge the financial health of a city, is if you look in your general fund, down under your fund balances. Right now, and again, this isn't under the full accrual, so no, this is a short-term basis, this is your annual budgets, these are when you purchased a capital outlay, a truck or a street sweeper, it gets expensed off as capital outlay, so this is a little different reporting perspective. But under the general fund, under your total fund balance, you can see you have $1.4 million in your net position or your fund balance. 30,000 of that, right above, has been committed by the council, previous councils. So when you have net assets like this, the council can specifically through resolution set money aside and say, we want this to be used for a specific project. There's 30,000 sitting there. The bulk of it is for about 2 or 3 years back, the council had put money away for employee replacement. So it helped, like if somebody retired and you had to pay out a severance payment out of that, that money was kind of set aside and said, we'll use that. So that, and it'll stay as committed until the council makes the resolution to uncommit it or to spend it. You do have their fire, there's about $8,600 that has been committed in the prior year for the fire department. And then there's still about $3,600 for the disc golf that had been set aside for some of the donations. So that's something to look at to see, do you want to, again, it would require council action to uncommit those funds, but to use those in future budgeting periods for improvements or repairs or however. It's up to the council on how you want to use those.
Don't we just have repairs that we had to do up there?
Well, we could start expensing some of the things that we have to do to maintain that when there's vandalism or something like that.
Right.
Correct, okay. But I mean, what we can, it's nice to have that little surplus there right now in case something big should happen,
Yeah.
but it's nice to have it, and if we see something there that we feel we want done, we can do it.
But it does require formal council
Right,
action to
okay.
do it. So, but that does leave 1.3 million as uncommitted, not restricted. The city of Buhl, just to put it in perspective, the city of Buhl has a minimum fund balance that you put into your financial policies to say that you want a minimum of at least 5 months of operating costs in your unrestricted general fund. Generally, we see 5 to 6. It's kind of a rule of thumb as your minimum amount, so that if something happens, you can continue to provide the services. Buhl, based on your 1.3 million and what your average costs were the last couple of years, actually has closer to 20 months. So when you look at the financial health of the city, now that sounds like a lot, and yet when you look at some of the projects you're doing, I just heard you, approve a $500,000 expenditure. So, it sounds like a lot, but when you put it into context, it could go quickly. But just to give you an idea of the financial idea of where you sit with that.
What's your recommendation, how many months?
Generally, the rule of thumb is between 5 and 6, at a minimum,
Okay.
And that's just, there's no hard or fast rule, other than the fact is it allows you enough unrestricted for operations in case there's a delay in LGA, things coming. It's not meant to be, it's just kind of to an emergency situation.
Right.
So it's not, and we have cities that struggle to try to meet that. But again, you could have something go wrong pretty quick and eat into your reserves.
I think trying to remember, we're kind of been hovering right around that 19, 20
Yeah.
months.
I think
For
you were
a long
about
time.
18, 19 last year, so you held your own for this
So we're
last year.
getting more and more every year.
Yeah. And it's not, here's the thing, it's not a bad thing, because it does go, it just goes to show that in the event you'd have to think in terms if you had to do that large infrastructure project that you're doing now, and you have many parties coming together with the financial end of it, if you weren't able to garner some, whether it was IRRB or CDBG or some of those other financing things, and you had to come up with more of your own funds to do it, it's nice to have, but it could go quick.
Once it starts going real, you're right. I've seen that happen, and there's no penalty to have it at 24 months. The only thing is, we're being penalized right now, there's no interest rate to adequately give us growth in that.
Yeah, I think, one of the things about, you're not penalized for it, but I think it behooves the city to have a plan also to know, we've set this away and we know eventually we may have to do this or that with it. So it's not just that you're sitting on the funds, but there isn't a penalty to do it. You just need to incorporate that into your budgeting process and see what's the best use. And that's really where moving towards, 5, 10-year type planning to come through. Does the roof need to be repaired, although you did some of that in 2020 with some other funds.
So you can set up designated reserve accounts for that, specifically naming it?
Yeah,
In school districts, you could do
Yeah.
that, and so that's where my familiarity was, okay.
Right.
So we could do that, though? Okay.
As committed. So that's your general fund. You'll see your administrative capital projects fund is the other. You'll see those two out because those are your larger funds, and so under the auditing standards, we have to split those out and give separate opinions on those. Your administrative capital projects fund had a little over $768,000 in cash. It does tend to borrow. There was a little bit of borrowing to other funds. If it's short, that's the fund that kind of has the cash to do some borrowing. I just want to point out that that is committed, that $792,000. The whole fund is committed. The council typically has used that fund to your mining effects dollars, and you do a small little portion of a levy that goes into that. And those funds that are specifically earmarked, the council will make motions to say, use this money, it'll pay for part of this, and we look for those transfers in the council minutes and transfer that out. So you did have $792,000.
That little levy, is that something that we can set how much that is, or is that governed by statute?
Yeah, it's just the portion that comes in. There was only about $4,000 that came in.
Okay.
So it's not, mostly what goes into there, your mining tax, that's what you have designated when it comes, or committed when it comes in. The other funds, there's a total column, we're gonna get in the back there. If you wanna just make a note, page 49 and 50, we'll kind of split all, there's other funds out there for your debt service capital projects, and we're gonna talk about a couple of those in a minute, but that's the total there. So again, just looking at that total government funds column, again, in your fund balance, just knowing that there's some restricted, I'm looking over into the fourth column over, kind of that last little section. Restricted fund balance of $125,587, that's debt service. You do have some committed funds, we've already talked about those, and then the unassigned of the 1.9, or 1.3, almost 1.4 million in general fund. The component unit column is VETA, you're required to have, because of the relationships in this, the accounting standards, VETA gets reported and audited alongside with receipts. So I want to just then flip real quick to page 21. There again, you'll see the operating costs for the year general fund. If you look at the excess of revenues over expenditures line, kind of 2/3 the way down, you'll see the general fund ended the year at $23,307 to the positive. In other words, you had your total revenues were $958,000 compared to your total expenditures of $935,000. So your general fund grew by $23,000 at that point. But then you'll see there were some transfers in and out. Those are budgeted or approved. We look at all of those, and the city is very, very diligent, and your minutes are excellent that when you approve those donations or those transfers back and forth, we can track those. But you'll see the biggest kick to your general fund was the proceeds of the sale for the $128,000. That included the sale proceeds from the school, the lot sales that you did. So you did quite a bit, and so took in $128,000. Remember, under this perspective, we're just showing the cash that comes in. The other perspective we showed would be under the full accrual, so you recognize the loss. But this one, you show the proceeds of $128,000. So for the general fund, you did see an increase back in 2020 of $179,000. Any questions on that? Otherwise, I'm going to flip to page 25. We're going to talk about your proprietary funds or your enterprise funds. These are the ones that we had said should be based on user fees. You have, the city of Buhl has obviously the water, sewer, refuse, and electric. But you still have an ambulance fund. The ambulance fund is an enterprise fund, but a couple of years ago you had sold the assets, but the fund still exists. It is have some CDs involved into there, so you can see under their column on page 25, there was some interest that was earned. There was some miscellaneous, a little over $5,000 that came back from some refunds of insurance, I think it was insurance, and a couple other refunds. Those are shown as other non-operating, because obviously you're not operating the ambulance anymore. So there still is $306,000 net net position at the end of the year in the ambulance fund. So once that decision is made, whether you whatever happens with that, just keep in mind that ambulance fund is an enterprise fund. You can make the decision how you would, if you're gonna keep it there, or you're going to close the fund down officially and transfer those funds out, that would be council decision on that. Then you'll see the infrastructure project fund. That was created back in 2019. Obviously, this is where the project that you see going on in town is recorded. If we flip back real quick to page 24, in that infrastructure project account, you'll see under bonds payable, that interim financing, the 1.2 million in that second column. That is what we talked about earlier. That was your draw for your interim financing on that project. But if you slide up above, you actually expended 1.8 million in work, in construction in progress. So at the end of December, you had 1.8 million into that project for, between engineering, legal fees, and some of the construction that had started. So 1.8, we had 1.2 million taken on the interim financing. So you will see some internal borrowing. That 158,000 was just that timing that you had internally had paid for it, hadn't drawn down yet on the line of credit, or on the interim financing as of the end of the year. Okay. Any questions? If we flip back to 25, I think, other than the general fund, the second point I think that is so important for cities to look at, you get a 70-page report and, pull out one or two items. And on page 25, and if you look at that operating income and loss line, this I think is the second most important thing for the council to look at, is you can see, again, we're not, ambulance has zero because you're not operating the ambulance at this point. The infrastructure account had $19,000 deficit. Again, that's only a timing because there was some cost for advertising, things like that originally came into it. But our big ones we're looking at is water, sewer, refuse, and electric. All of those had positive operating income. That's not always the case in a lot of communities your size. And so you look at that, like for instance, water is showing 88,000, that is still covering depreciation of 53,000. That is exactly what you should be doing, because you need enough to come for those user fees, like for instance in water, to cover those operating costs, including depreciation. But eventually we're going to have some interest expense and some other things down below once the project gets done, and the water's going to have its respective portion of the debt, the sewer will have its proportion of the debt, and they all need to be covered. And so sometimes when you look at that thing, you're on the right track, and you had the consultant come in and look at your fees and making sure they're covering that. And so you can look for even the water, it's covering 53,000 in depreciation, sewer has almost 29,000, a little over 29,000, and the electric 13. So when the mayor had the question about would this project impact this in future years, it definitely will, because as those assets are completed, those lines, infrastructure is put in, placed in service, depreciation starts on it. That depreciation number is going to go up, which means you need to have the user fees appropriately able to cover that. So we don't start running deficits into some of those operational costs. Okay?
So right now we're positioned just perfectly.
Well, as of December 31st.
For right now, yes. But I mean, that changes every year,
Yeah,
but
you're right.
you don't want to have negatives in there either.
You don't want to have
that means rate increases.
Right.
So,
Every once in a while, if you go down to your net position for each of those funds, again, the water fund has 1.5 million in some of that net position. So, but keep in mind, even with that net position, if we go back to 24, page 24, just because your net position is showing 1.5 million for your water, keep in mind under that, we're in the third column, kind of the second or third line up from the bottom. Water is $1,547,032 in your net position, but you can see 1.1 or almost 1.2 is in capital assets, it's your infrastructure. So you really have 360,000 in unrestricted, more liquid type positions to have. So just make sure that even though somebody might look and say, well, we've got 1.5 million in that position, doesn't mean it's all usable, because it's in your ground, it's in the ground. So that when you start looking at water had 360,000 of unrestricted, undesignated, Sewer had 317,000. Garbage had 4,900, so that one typically runs a little tighter. And then the electric had 973.
And the number's gone up from like last year.
Again, if you look at 25, page 25, and you see the change in net position, that's that third line up to the bottom, that'll show you what did it change.
Oh.
It'll show you, yes, you can see how they, especially the water, sewer, refuse, all of those are still positive at that point. And that's, you either want to be, the refuse is probably running the closest at 385. You probably couldn't get much closer as far as the break even on that one. But that
Oh, that shouldn't
really
be a profit
should
for
be
us.
the goal, is to have them at that point, or, and even the idea of having, an excess, in other words, your revenues exceed your expenditures. It's to start reserving. If you look at our water, your water fund had 300 and some thousand into it. Again, it's the idea of building that up, so when you need to start doing some repairs to this project or replacing other things, you've got some funds there.
I wonder why is our garbage like so, like, little close on?
It's constant.
It's just
Yeah,
a
it's
service.
just a service, yeah.
Yeah.
They quote us and what do we have, how many year contract?
5.
But it's got increases built into it, but you don't want big swings in that. If that was too positive, that means we're overcharging people.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be negative, because then we're paying the city, so that's a good number, actually.
Like I said, everybody pays for the 65-gallon can.
Yeah.
So there's no adjustments unless they rent two garbage cans. Then they pay for 2, but it's constant.
You can see on page 25 the cost for the refuse, the operating cost for that. The bulk of that is your contracted service. Your fees, you took in 134,000. The contracted services was 108. Then there was a little over 10, almost 11,000 just in the city crew and things doing their time and allocating to it. So by the time you get done, there isn't any depreciation on that one, because you don't have any assets. You don't own the garbage trucks. And so you can see that generally there's that $3,385. But then there's a $3,000 transfer that comes out. That's been part of the city's, that $13,000 we talked about funding your OPEB line characteristic. That is one of them. You can see it comes from the general fund does 4,000, and refuse, electric, and water each do 3. That's just traditionally how it's been done. So you take some of that to help fund the OPEB. Then I'm just going to bring real quick to page 36. I think note 5 talks about your debt. And again, you can see your business type right now. Under the long-term debt, that column is 0. But under your governmental funds, you'll see that there's 15,000 in your final payment left on that TIF, and then, or the TIF fund, and then the final on your street sweeper payment of $5,569. So that's it, except if you slide down below to that short-term debt, you'll see that 1.2 million, again, we've talked about several times. Generally on this one, you'll see, when I first started working with the city, we were required to show 5 years and then 5-year increments after that. And so a lot of cities will have a big chunk in their footnotes on that, showing how much of that debt service is gonna come. Now next year, when you're in 2021, when the financing goes through, the final financing on this project, and it converts it to long-term, we will see that. We'll break that out and show, here's what your carrying costs are for the next 5 years, and then in 5-year increments. And then that debt is also going to be further split out between how much is general infrastructure for your streets, so we'll be working with your engineers on to make sure that we capture that data. How much of it is streets, overlay, sidewalks, versus how much is water, versus how much is sewer. Because each of that gets the respective capital assets and the respective debt. Right now, it's all being captured in the one infrastructure project. And then just a couple more pages, way back to page 55. This shows those couple debt service funds that are out there, and I just want to bring your attention The TIF bonds, 1997, that's the one that has the final 15,000 that's due. Right now, it has a fund balance of 87,000. I was talking with Diana, once that's that TIF district, once it gets decertified, you go back and look at any additional fund balance that's left in there. Did the city have some incurred administrative costs that the city could keep and it goes into the general fund, or some of that money eventually gets paid back to the county? So, and she was thinking it was maybe 2023, so you've got a year or so left on that one. Wandless, however, Wandless Geo Bond, that one has a balance of 37,000, and Wandless has been paid out. That was done in 2018. So we talked a little bit in the 2019 audit about the city looking at that one. You really do have 37,927 that should be looked at. Do that cursory review back to your original debt agreement just to make sure there isn't anything embedded or unique in there. And then that money, that fund should be closed out, and then the council can decide with those excess funds whether you want to apply it to another infrastructure project or how you want to handle that one. But it's really looking at these funds that they don't stay open and open.
We can put it in any fund we want?
As long as there's not any other thing embedded in it.
Anything else with a tail to it, right?
You could put it in, generally what we see with the debt service once it's done, because remember the debt service, oftentimes these balances are coming because of the special assessments and coming in, it's an estimate when it comes in. And so a lot of times we'll see these going back into similar type street projects.
Okay.
And so it might go to a capital projects fund, or it might go into something committed onto that.
Okay.
But Wandless is something to look at. There's only $199 out there in a special assessment that was not collected on a project this size, and it's just sitting as an allowance considered delinquent. And so it's, if that ever does eventually come in, it just goes into whatever fund you had. It's not, you typically don't keep these out longer than that. So that's one of the recommendations, is to look at that fund, make some decisions on that one. And then the last one is, if you go to page 57, 57 and 58 are your capital projects funds. Now, these are the ones that all of these funds kind of got rolled into that one column prior. But on these particular ones, I just want to bring your attention to East Monroe Drive. That one has been done. These are capital projects funds that were completed actually a few years ago, the actual construction of it, but the funds are kept open because you had assessed special assessments against it, and generally they're kept open until some of those special assessments come if there wasn't specific debt against it, like we saw over in the Wandless one. East Monroe has $16,595, so that's one too for the council to look at and close.
Will we get them assessments?
Actually, the East Monroe's been done. That was completed, I think, in 2018, and you got all the you'll see if there was an outstanding special assessment onto that, it would show up as your special assessments under that one. And then Damien Addition, that has only about 2,600, but that one's been done too. So the only ones that are still outstanding is Sharon Street, which you did the final assessment in 2020. But generally, it's open for a year or so if there's any delinquents on that one. But East Monroe should be done, Damien Addition done, and then on page 58, France Street is the other one. France Street is the one that still had about $1,100 out there. But those were done in prior. In other words, you've done your final assessments on them under the generally 10 years. South Memorial is going to be open. I think those assessments go until 2024. So when you look at it, it's East Monroe, Damien Addition, and France Street are the three to kind of look at to see where do you want to do with them. Because otherwise they just stay open. And once those assessments are done and you're not collecting on them, there's no sense to continue to do those. The Alley Whiteside one shows that $6,763. That's going to be paid off in
Sharon is next one.
Okay, got it.
We talked on, that's been an outstanding, just a retainage payable, and finally everything was cleared up on that one and paid. So that, by virtue, should be done, and that fund will be closed out. So we would be just looking at Sharon and South Memorial. So just know that those funds might we looked at. And then the last thing I just want to touch base on is page 67. Because you had a single audit this year, actually, real quick, on page 61, sorry, this is what tripped the uniform guidance audit. The city of Buhl received $1,586,211 in federal funds. And so once you receive over $750, we're required to do the uniform guidance audit, which has different testing and reporting requirements. You can see the biggest one is the 1.4 million, and that was the expenditures. But remember when we talked about the debt was only 1.2? The difference was because you actually expended 1.4 million on a project that qualified under this report. You just drew down the 1.2, so there was a couple $100,000 that was just drawn down subsequent to your entrance. You'll see that the city received under COVID-19 your CARES funding, $73,833 that the city had spent. We tested that. There were 3 criteria to that. It had to be related to COVID, it couldn't be in your budget, and it had to be spent between March, a date in March, and then by the end of the year. The city used yours on improvements because at the senior center that was designated for voting, and you needed to have that available for spacing for voting for COVID restrictions. So you were able to utilize those dollars for that. And then you'll see there were a couple other things that came through the CDBG for emergency services building and your water and sewer project. There was a little bit available of a $50,000 grant that you spent $38,394. So totally, it just gives you an idea for the city of Buhl last year in 2020 received 1.5 million in federal funds. So because of that, we have to test, and you'll see 67, 68, 69 are those findings that come. Again, the first 2 findings you've seen in the past, and you probably will see continually. So on page 67, we had a finding because of the lack of segregation of duties. It's just the reality that's there because of the size of your staff, and you don't have the ability to segregate duties to create the optimum internal control. So we're required to disclose that to the council and just let you know that that's the case. It rises, everybody's got control deficiencies. This just means it's significant enough that the council should be aware of it. The highest level is a material weakness. If you get to that point, then the notation is that the system is maybe not catching errors and correct, and things. At this point, it's just significant. Very common. Absolutely, every city that we do has that into it.
I've never seen a school that doesn't get that
Or
either.
the school districts, everybody.
So that's nothing to
And then
consider.
Right. The second one too is we're also required to put in there that we assist with the preparation of the financial statements and the footnotes. That is also a required disclosure to the readers of your financial. So really there was just a couple others. The IC finding 2020-03 was IC 134s. And it was only 2 contracts with everything going on. So all that, what happens is the state of Minnesota requires before you make final payment to a contractor who has employees, you just need to get an IC 134 or some sort, that's the most typical one, to make sure that they do not owe any back withholding to the state of Minnesota, because the state of Minnesota wants you to pay, if there is, they want you to pay them. So it's just a requirement that comes in. There was just 2 of them. Of all the payments that you do, we look at that. There were just a couple contracts, small ones that just didn't have for the final payment went out. There again, I think, that's a very common one that's, is there. And then the last one, the 2020-04, is only there because of a single audit. Again, embedded within the uniform guidance audit is this requirement that you're supposed to have written policies and procedures. And so, if you look in the management letter for the last how many years, one of the last points in there that I always have recommended to the past is you have lots of policies and procedures, everybody does, but sometimes it's good to have them written down, put into one place. The uniform guidance requires it. It doesn't impact your grant funding or anything like that, so but we're required to disclose that your policies, all your policies aren't written. So those were just the minor ones. Any questions on that? And again, the other 2 letters we've covered. The management letter are just a lot of what we just covered, the recommendations to look at those funds. And then the other letter to governance is just a standard communication that is required. There's a lot of information and literally takes months of work, and I appreciate so much Ryan and Diana's patience and putting up with both the on-site and the numerous emails back and forth and questions, so I appreciate that.
Well, we appreciate all three of you
Yeah,
getting this together.
Thank you.
And
thank you for
it's
putting
a
it in
great
terms.
report for the public. This is a very good audit, so.
Yeah. Thank you for putting
We
it in
have some
terms we can
strengths.
understand.
I don't know if you can.
So the one point after, assuming the approval tonight, then the report gets submitted to the state auditor's office. They get a copy of it, and then within generally 30 days, then it would go to rural development will want to see a copy. And then the last piece that gets, because of the single audit, I'll be working with Diana and Ryan for what's called the data collection report. Just goes to the federal government to show the 1.5 million that you had in federal funds, to disclose to them. Our report gets sent to them as well. So there's several oversight bodies that get the report when you get to the level of the federal fund.
Thank you. Any questions from the council before we vote on this? If not, is there a motion to approve the audit report as presented by Bonnie?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Stuart. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Brandon. Further comment or discussion? Hearing none. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Parrish?
Yes, motion carried. Well, it's on you now to get it sent in and everything else, so. And I'm looking forward to next year because it's going to be real interesting, this big project and stuff, so. Okay, let's move on to 7E, resolution number 21-33. This resolution authorizes the sale of lots 6 and 7, block 3 in the Stubler addition to Scott and Gretchen Mosu? How do you pronounce that?
Muso.
Musa. That's Malaro.
I know.
Musa. Okay, is there a motion to, this is standard, by the way, is there a motion to approve resolution 21-33?
I so move.
Moved by Marcus, is there support?
I'll support.
Moved by Stuart. Further comment or discussion?
I have a question on it.
Yep, go ahead.
So is this a couple? We're talking about the lots around the swimming beach, correct?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're purchasing 2 of them?
That's
Well,
the 2 lots on the end.
Or is it the 1 lot?
One lot, yeah.
Yeah,
Because the 2 were combined as one?
yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
every lot we sold was at least a lot and a half, so usually you're used to seeing lot 6 plus half of lot 5, for
Okay.
example. This one got combined into one lot because it's that lot that borders all that. power lines
Substation,
on the
it's the
side.
one,
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha, okay.
so we never split that one up. We left, 6 and 7, actually, that's what they were anyhow, but
Gotcha.
yeah,
I was just curious, I thought maybe they were trying to buy 2 at once.
No, it's just,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
It's just combined into one. It wasn't
Just
clear.
the
Good question.
description.
Okay, now I got, okay, we have a motion and support on there. Any other questions? Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Parrish?
Yes, motion carried. Resolution 21-34. This resolution authorizes the mayor and the clerk to execute the necessary documents for the sale of the Stubler lot. And once again, this is standard. We have to do this after the sale of every lot. Is there a motion to approve 21-34?
Motion. Support.
Motion by Brandon, support by John. Further comment discussion? Hearing none, Brandon, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Parrish?
Yes. Okay, next is Resolution 21-35, the American Rescue Plan Funds. Attached is Resolution 21-35. The City of Buhl is estimated to receive approximately $110,000 allocated through the American Rescue Plan. Details are still being finalized through the Minnesota Office of Management and Budget. The League is recommending cities under 50,000 pass this resolution, which gives authority to city administrative officials to take the necessary steps to secure these funds. I will make the motion. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Stuart. Further comment or question? Anything, Ryan, you want to add that we should?
Yeah, this is
wasn't in
just
there?
a resolution. It basically, if something needs to be done so we can get those funds in our bank account, it gives essentially the mayor and myself the authority to do so. It doesn't allow us to spend the funds that.
We're not committing to any project.
That will be a council decision down the road, so.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Anything else? Hearing none. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes. Motion is passed. Resolution is passed. Okay, resolution 21-36. Attached is resolution 21-36. This resolution gives preliminary approval for the issuance of a capital improvement bond for the fire hall expansion. The city is actively pursuing grant dollars to fund the project. This is a backup plan in the event the city wants to finance the project. We discussed this at a public meeting not too long ago with the chief and his assistant, and I think it's a good project, good plan with that new fire truck. Gives them more capabilities to do many things, including training and storage. Is there a motion to approve resolution 21-36?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Brandon,
I'll support.
support by John. Further comment or question? Hearing none. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman? Yes. Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to 7I. Attached is resolution 21-37, authorizing the sale of lot 6 and east half of lot 5, block 2 to Jennifer Krenner. Is there a motion to approve resolution 21-37?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Stuart. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Support by John. Questions or comments? Anything, Ryan, you want to say?
No, just.
Standard, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question. How many more lots are left down there for sale?
None.
That's it, they're gone?
We're out.
Yep. After we get through this next set of resolutions, yeah, they will all be
Yeah.
Okay.
sold. Which is a very good thing for the city.
It is.
Yeah, we got them within a year since we started advertising?
Couple of years. yeah.
Was it been 2? Okay, well,
Oh,
we're successful. So,
didn't you were making that motion to change the sale of them lots
reduced, yes,
when you first got on, so.
okay. Well, seems like you've been here forever,
Ryan's the
so.
one that kicked it off, and
Okay,
Got the ball rolling.
well, that's good. Okay, we have a motion second. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes. Resolution passed. Okay, J, resolution 21-38. Attached to resolution 21-38, authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the sale documents for the Stubler lot. Once again, this is needed and necessary and routine. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Okay, and I'll support that. So, further comment or discussion? Hearing none. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes, resolution passed.
Well, we're, tell them we're selling it to Dan and Lori Jorgensen. I don't know.
Wait, no.
Isn't that, we're not there yet?
No.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, this was 21-38.
Oh. I thought you said.
Okay, resolution 21-39. Attached resolution 21-39 authorizing the sale of lot 1 and the west half of lot 2 to Daniel and Lori Jorgensen. Is there a motion? Come on,
Make a
John.
motion.
Okay, motion by Stuart. Is there support?
Support.
Support by John. Okay, once again, this is fairly routine. Any questions from anyone? Hearing none, Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes.
I do have one question. Do you know these people, Ryan?
I've met a few of them.
They live in town? No.
Couple are from the cities that are moving up this way, and another couple was from Chisholm.
Okay.
Okay, so resolution 21-39 passed. Now resolution 21-40 is authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the sale documents for the Stubler lot. I'll make the motion. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Brandon. Further comment discussion. Once again, this is routine and needed. Hearing none, Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes. Okay, resolutions passed. Now we're on M, public hearing housing and development. Okay, With the passage of the previous resolutions, all lots in the Stubler development have been sold. What this means for the city of Buhl is 12 new homes will be built in the coming years. Benefits include increased property tax base along with additional utility customers and inflow into the utility customer accounts. Okay, as you are aware, there have been discussions about the next development that would be located where the vacant ball fields currently are. This location is by far the most cost-effective option for the city's next housing development. There have been also a few concerns about this development infringing on Burton Park. For this reason, I would recommend the council schedule a public hearing as part of the next council meeting on July 13th to address any concerns regarding the development before the final okay is given. And I just want to add that the final okay is done by this council. There's no vote of the public. The public can have input on what their options are, and we'll be discussing what options are for other housing in the area and what that would cost. So we'll have that all laid out for everybody and possibly a tentative plan. So is there a motion to hold the public hearing on a regular, we only have one meeting in July, on July 13th. I recommend that we have it at the senior center, just in case we have a lot of people. Might be a little cooler in there too. At 6:30 p.m. as part of the regular council meeting.
So it'll have a similar structure to what we did tonight, where we'll call the meeting to order, do a roll call, and then we'll go into that.
We'll go right into that first so the people come,
Yep.
they don't have to stay for the council
Yep.
meeting. I like that idea. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Stuart, is there support?
Support.
Support by John. Comments or questions from the council?
Well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, this is gonna be at the senior center, right?
Yes.
So, 6:30.
Okay.
We should probably have, I don't know, John, you should probably bring some of your sheets with plans of what we're gonna do at the park maybe, and have the ball field up.
We're gonna have some options available for the public and explain that to them.
Yeah, we want a board, show different options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to be prepared, we have to be able to answer the questions. And it's the public, we're not infringing on Burton Park proper, these are the ball fields, which are owned by the city and were developed by the city. And there is no covenant with the state or anyone else that has to go through anything approval from the state. That is our land, developed by us into baseball fields, it can be developed into housing.
Well,
Or
I think
anything else
we can offer options that we won't lose anything that we have. You know, we're gaining a tax base, but the way I looked at it, we're not taking away anything up there. You know, we're just moving it around. Yeah.
I think in the mayor's comments I had earlier this year, I made the comment that we'll get several utility customers on there. After reading all things Buhl and hearing all these comments about these exorbitant rates that we have, which if people look at the post office, our rates are either the lowest or real competitive with everybody around us. But this puts more people online with that, which thereby then helps fund these accounts that we have and building up reserve for that. And the nice thing is, it's almost all developed there already. We have a bid of $300,000 to do that, and we already have obtained at least $100,000, and we're working with the IRRB now trying to get another big chunk of that. So we're hoping that'll be at no cost to the city or not dip into any of our reserves. So that's our plan for this whole thing.
And the added housing is gonna keep our levy low.
Yeah.
Everything, that's direct dollars. It's just like this Stubler pit now, that as the houses get developed and they start paying taxes, we're gonna see that increase for more dollars to go to the city to keep costs somewhat constant. You know, the price of everything keeps going up slowly but surely, but we can maybe limit that. And then once again, add another 8 to 10 units. We don't know what we're gonna have. I mean, they could be townhomes, they could be individual, we'll talk about that.
Well,
So that's coming up.
even Damien Addition, the money that they pay for taxes, those people south of the park there, it hasn't come to the city.
Yeah.
Next year it's coming to the city. So we're adding 10, 16 more people to tax rolls on Damien, plus the pit, and then plus the development. And I think our biggest issue is to go look what's gonna be next.
That was my question, is where,
Well, the big chunk of land we have is behind the school.
Yeah.
But that's in the millions to develop, but we have to set our sights on that.
Down by the cemetery, just on north of your property, we owned that, and we gave it away years ago.
That
would've
field
been
there, that
ideal.
40?
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, for development, oh my God, that
Sean,
would've
what are you doing, giving it away?
been, I didn't give it away.
Well,
Well, now we're pushing utilities into the,
I know, we have them down there. I mean, to develop that 40, north of your 40, would've been so easy.
that would have been a new hotspot for people. to put
Oh, yeah,
houses in.
and it's off the highway, the
Yeah.
noise, everything.
okay.
Well,
Well, that's just for the public to understand that now. I believe we have a motion and
Oh, I have
second.
one question.
Oh,
Will this be voted on at that meeting? Or is this just a public hearing to discuss it?
I mean, that'll be up to the council, whether they wanted to, I mean, it will
I
be.
would probably recommend that we want to take the input and just sort through it a little bit and see what's at, and then in case there's people that we have to get back to, kind of explain if they misunderstood, because we'll hear about it that night on Facebook, so.
Oh, yeah.
We'll know what the concerns are, and we can readdress that, but we have to, if we want to get on this as soon as possible, because one of the grants we have is contingent on approving it fairly soon, and not saying we have to build it this year, but we could start developing it, so. And the nice thing is that we do have a major contractor in town, and we're working right now on to making that as an add-on to our current water and sewer, so eliminating the cost for going out for a bid, but also maybe get a pretty good bid, because they're already mobilized right here. That could save a lot of money. So, I mean, that's why we're looking at this right now. And once again, all the lots are sold on Stubler. There's no place else to
No
go,
place to go.
so. Well,
Is there?
there's other places, but they cost a lot.
Yeah.
This would be the most
Is there not
economical.
anything behind the old shortstop, like 1 or 2 lots?
It's all, I mean, the
there's
tough
one.
part about behind the old, there's one lot left, but it's just a single lot. For anybody to build, you know, a good sized home, that's gonna be tough. I've kind of been, Habitat for Humanity has been interested in Buhl in the past. That would be a good sized lot for, you know, that 1,000 square foot home that, you know, is helped built by the community, plus it brings tax base in.
It usually doesn't have a basement, it's just on slabs,
Yeah.
so.
So I've reached out to their director quite a few times, and I know there's a few Buhl residents who are on that, working with that for, you know, to possibly have them build their homes. So, I mean, ideally, that'd be a perfect fit for something like that. I don't think.
I think you should talk to the people who live there first before you do that.
I know,
Just
I
their-
hear
their
what you're saying,
opinion.
yep.
Their opinion. I mean, would you, you know,
You don't have a say who goes there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we'll look at that. Did we answer your question?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, anything else? Hearing nothing, Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarych?
Yes. Okay, the motion is passed. Okay, what's that mean? Well, I quit in a hurry, so hopefully they know where I'm at. Your buddy Louie. Next is the 7N, Minnesota Rural Water Association dues. This is standard, correct, Ryan?
Yeah, this is standard. This is something that the city's belonged to for quite a while. If you remember, Mike Strodman's with Rural Water helped us develop is developing our wellhead plan at essentially no cost. Otherwise, we'd have to hire a consultant, which could cost thousands. They provide training and things for Trent and the other public works guys to get their continuing education and stuff.
We
like
get our
that.
money's worth out of this.
It's a very,
I recommend, or I motion to approve the Minnesota Rural Water Association dues in the amount of $300. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Support by Stewart. Further comment or question? Hearing none, Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yeah.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarych?
Yes. Okay, motion passed. Okay, 7O, ice rink boards. Before we do anything on that, Ryan, do you just want to highlight what you're thinking there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trent and I have talked about this a few times. I mean, they're at the point where they're beyond disrepair and we need to take them down and then eventually decide what we want to do with that area. obviously we'll still keep it the one ice rink, whether it's making that bigger, it'd be a good project for a potential rec board, what do we want to do with that space? Do we want to look at putting up more boards? Do we want to try to figure out something that makes it kind of multi-use, that area could be used in the summer as well as the winter kind of thing? But for this purposes, unless anybody in the council disagrees, with the summer kids in town, it'd be a good project to clean that area up, take those boards down, get rid of them. So that's the motion I'd be looking for.
A little question, I'm looking at you a little bit more, Trent. Are those boards a liability? If they're out there and some kid got checked into that, what kind of condition? Could they splinter? Could they create an injury that, we would be liable for?
Yeah, like currently, if you look at them, the railroad ties, they're kind of the supports for the boards.
Right.
They're all rotten, so we're at a situation where we either need to replace all those or just tear them down and look at an option of like a polymer board system that they got in different towns like that.
But the supports need to be replaced.
Yeah.
How about the boards? Are the boards in fair condition or?
The rec department had replaced some of the boards.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. And in all honesty, I haven't gone up and checked the boards recently.
Okay.
But just as far as like the support beams, basically, you can see them on the outside, there's a lot of them. They're all rotten, some of them are actually even laying down right now.
And they're not even attached, there's a space between. Okay.
It either needs a lot of repair or the cost they put into it, it might be better just to put something that'll last a lot longer and look better. If that's an option that you guys.
Well, we'll have to look and see,
Well, I
take
think
recommendations from your guys' committee too.
If we took that down, I think we should take it down in the 4x8 sections that they are, not just completely tear it up. I don't know if we made a half a hockey rink later on, we could still use those sections, but we'd put in new posts. It's pretty expensive to replace that. When they were doing it years ago, I tried to tell them to go with Teflon, but they don't want to listen to me, so I didn't go that route for boards.
Well, Trent, why don't you look at that and see if that's possible first?
We should look into maybe rebuilding it.
It's a lot of money.
I know.
Well, now it's pretty spendy. Everything's high.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying, take down,
Wood.
even if you rebuild it, what you're saying, you could still utilize what we have, but where the ties are, you'd put a different system in there to put up these 4x8 sections.
Well, whatever, it takes more investigation. Maybe we need another report on July 13th for what exactly, because we'll still have those summer workers for a while if there's any tear
maybe
down.
we should walk down there and look.
Yeah,
at
take
it.
a look.
I haven't seen it.
I'll have to
recently.
walk, it's right there, so,
So
okay.
I don't think we should
Is that
bulldoze
okay?
our ball fields and.
Yeah,
See what our options
We got it.
So once you take it down, I don't think we can build something to replace it. I really don't.
Well, not
I
the
think
prices
it'll
of
be-
today.
It'd be, I bet you over $50,000, closer to 100 maybe, the wood prices today.
Yeah.
on-
Oh,
on-
yeah,
on
wood
a
prices
hou-
are
Could you
way-
imagine that?
They're
And
way
then, and
out
then those big posts, Okay, but that's what we'll do. I'll go down and take a look, we'll talk about this. Put this back on, I'm sorry, Ryan, on
Motion
the
to table?
13th. Yep, motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table it.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Okay, support by Brandon. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman? Yes. Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes. Okay, next is 7P. Hideaway request. Attached request from the Hideaway to host an outdoor event. The Hideaway would be responsible for all garbage and cleanup. In the past, city has allowed events like this. The only concern is the status of the construction equipment in and around State Street. We will talk to Mr. Jamnick on Thursday morning. We're going to meet with him after the 9:30 construction meeting and see whatever special things we have to do there, what we should talk to Casper Construction about. I believe this is for a wedding reception. I would make the motion to approve the Hideaway request. Is there, okay, support by Stewart. Further comments or questions? You can see the letter that's written right there if you.
I just have a quick question. There should be pavement down by then, right?
Yeah.
Well, at least,
Okay.
what was
At
it,
least
July
the base
what?
coat.
July 10th?
And then
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got,
Thursday. This week he's there.
a big part of the town hopefully will be done, so it'll be easy.
Yeah,
easier.
good deal.
But I have talked to Nora about it, so I said, Nora, we are in a construction zone.
Yeah.
And hopefully all that should be fit, I mean, Jones, everything down there should be
That'd be nice for them if, as
pretty
long as
well
it's
set,
paved.
but, so she's got a place, she knows about that, but whatever we come up with Casper and John Jamnick, we will relate to her. And we'll explain.
Just to touch on the pavement, just can't guarantee that it's gonna be fully paved. It'll have at least the base layer.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be some, just so it's wear coat probably won't.
I gotta see what her plan is, so, when she says outside, I think she just wants to block off the street.
Yeah, well then, I mean, if we got the the base coat down, they're not dancing in the mud, that
Yeah.
was just my question.
Well, they want to use some barricades, I don't know if we could.
We have barricades.
She'll have to,
Well, we're doing a barricade, just worry about cleanup.
Yeah.
They gonna pick up after they're done? I mean, we don't wanna pay anybody.
we'll have to hire somebody.
Yeah.
We've done that in the past when I owned it, so. And let me tell you, it was a mess.
Yeah, I know.
So, and they're open for business the next day, so they want it to be cleaned up too, so. Okay, further comments or questions? They're all good questions. Hearing none. Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarych?
Yes, okay, request approved. Q, attorney authorization, blight violation. Ryan, just want to touch this a little bit?
If you can recall when Chief Manor gave his report at a previous council meeting, he recommended, he let us know kind of what, another avenue we could take to hold people accountable, and that would be to requiring, those in violation, if they get a citation, that they're mandatory, they have to appear in court. Talking to Chief Manor and then our city attorney, I think we're just looking for a motion to direct Attorney Carney to talk with Chief Manor, Chisholm's attorney Brian Lindsay, check on their process into, getting this in place for the city of Buhl. That puts a little bit more teeth into our ordinances and our violation, those were in violation.
Go ahead, Brandon, go ahead.
So this will make it, if you get a blight citation and you're required to be in person at court for that?
Yeah.
Okay, which offense? I mean, obviously your first offense, I don't know how they work.
I mean, usually how our process works, they're given a warning and a correct, get this cleaned up in, 10 days or whatever. They don't clean it up, here's a fine. This is laid out in resolution of how the enforcement process works.
We have that already.
Yep. And then after that, if they're given an actual, maybe Attorney Carney can help me out on that.
Well, if they're not coming into compliance, then it kind of goes more progressive to the point that they get a criminal citation for violation of the Buhl ordinance. And a lot of times it's like a payable, they don't have to appear and it sits in limbo. So you can fill out a form, file it with the court for the specific Buhl ordinance, with the blight violation, and you check a box that says mandatory court appearance. And then they have to appear. The courts are slowly opening, right now it's Zoom, but things are opening up that pretty quick in the next few months. There could be, they'd have to actually go over to Hibbing Courthouse and appear on it. But usually we want compliance. We don't want to pursue criminal charges in court hearings and incur costs by me. We just fix the blight problem.
And the first one's a warning, no ticket or no mandatory court appearance, so. At least we'll see how it gets developed, but. So we're just approving to explore this, or are we approving that this is?
Well, Ryan, that I can contact Chief Manners and/or Chisholm attorney Brian Lindsay, and I don't know if the ordinances are similar. I thought we kind of adopted which ones they did so that they're consistent with, the enforcement by Chisholm, whatever they're enforcing there is similar in Buhl, and then, the same ones are requiring mandatory court appearances. So it's kind of consistent between the two communities since Chisholm's policing for Buhl now.
Attorney Carney, I guess, could we get this done so that you could bring this back on July 13th, so we've aligned the
Well,
ordinance?
if you do it, pass it tonight, then I would, as soon as I get the right ordinances that Chisholm's done, then I just file it with the court, that we want mandatory court appearances for these ordinance violations.
But we have to vote on changing it to that, correct?
No, just direct me to do it.
Okay,
Tonight.
okay. Okay, before I ask for motions, are any further questions of Ryan or Attorney Carney? It's clear to me,
Clear as
and then
mud.
we.
Hopefully it won't have to be used if people would just take the time and maintain their property, but it always seems there's a few that think differently.
Well, we've been trying to work with people for a couple of years now, so. Okay.
But
John?
like we say, we're set up to give them like a warning for like first 20 days or whatever is I think now.
Yeah. I mean,
And then if there's no response, we give them another blight ticket or citation. And then basically the second time, you guys got to respond. Okay, that's what we're looking at.
I'll
Yep.
make the motion on this.
Okay, motion by Stewart, is there support?
I'll support it.
Okay, motion by Stewart, support by John. Further comments? Hearing none, Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter.
Yes.
Counselor Lehman.
Yes.
Counselor Marcus.
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Well, we're gonna get done here eventually. Good thing there's not a curfew in town, we'd all get a ticket.
Haven't had dinner yet.
7R, parking ordinance update. Ryan, do you wanna just
Yeah,
lead the discussion before we have a motion?
Sure, I mean, residents have expressed concern, I know our employees have expressed concern, the Chisholm PD, just about some of the parking situations we have in town. And I just kind of wanted the council to have a brief discussion to start on what direction we want to go. Between visibility, inability on some streets with people parking on both sides to get emergency vehicles through. Obviously, construction makes it a little bit worse, but it's still a concern around town, and obviously we want to make sure our streets are safe, visibility good for residents, children, things like that. So just kind of looking for some thoughts from the council on directions we want to go on this. Is it something that we want to tackle? Is it not? I think some streets are better than others. We all know that, and, trying to pick the street this way, I mean, it's not practical when trying to enforce some of this. Obviously the goal is, you would hope someone's already parked on one side of the street, you wouldn't park on the other, and obviously limit traffic that goes through there, but that's not happening. So I think there are some serious concerns about safety and emergency services, whether it's, ambulances, fire trucks, PD, getting to some properties because of some of this congestion, so.
Once again, I had another constituent today, and they named the people, but they said I have no problem with a contractor who's working on a house if they have their trailer there and they're filling up. That's a different story. But I've seen the trailers sit out there for a while. I've seen campers with the door facing out into the road and their steps out in the middle of the road, and at night you couldn't see that. I mean, I think we have to tighten some of this up. We would not do this right away. My thought on this was that come November 1st, when the standard parking ordinance goes into effect, that we would just extend it if we're gonna make it both sides or whatever, and then any of these changes about trailers, campers, any other large objects just sitting there, and then following up on some of this stuff. I think we're just trying to tighten this up. Once again, I have heard about this from several people. It's not, and today was the last, I got hit by 3 or 4 people today. So, and I didn't get hit, they brought that up, and I said, well, we've talked about most of the stuff tonight at this meeting already, so just bringing it up, so that's I think we have to do something to that. Exactly what? I know there's a lot of towns that are onto permanent calendar parking. I believe Virginia is. Attorney Carney, do you know that?
I'm not sure, I can't recall.
Okay. Chisholm is, and I always read, once again, in All Things Buhl, that nobody can understand the...
Well, it's kind of like a safety issue, really, if you think about it.
It's a big safety
It
issue.
is.
When you got a car here and a car here, and you got your own path to drive on, I mean, kids or anybody, you don't have time to react, and there is no reaction because you can't pull over to the left or right where there's nobody parked because there's parked cars there.
And you can't meet, I came into town tonight, and you can't meet another car. Somebody's
Yeah,
gonna have to
exactly.
pull
You gotta-
over,
yeah,
and you gotta
that's what you have
let
So
them
you've
pass.
seen this firsthand?
Well, yeah, I drove it just coming down a couple of streets tonight. Of course, the construction probably accentuated it,
Yeah.
but, it's ongoing.
Well, I think it's just for the kids' safety, it's an issue there for sure.
The kids and the emergency vehicles too. A lot of our streets aren't wide enough if there's two cars parked, across from each other for a fire truck or an ambulance to get down them.
Sure, have you ever had to detour because you couldn't get down a street either in the past on an ambulance or with the fire
And
truck?
there's not much double parking on where he is, so
Not really.
people have garages and
Okay, we're just looking, I mean, we'll gather input on this too, so.
nobody parks in the street on your street.
Not there, but
No, they really don't,
a few
yeah.
other places.
Well, yeah, and the other places, yeah. That's what we're talking
And,
about.
now that with the construction, it's 10 times worse.
Oh, yeah.
So,
We'll get through it this year though, and we'll be pretty well set, so. So Ryan, should we should we pass a motion on this? Would you prefer that,
I mean, I would say,
to start this, because we'll,
I would say maybe direct me to work with the city attorney on an ordinance revision to bring back.
and the police department.
And the PD to bring back to council for approval. That way, if we do this, we'll do it early enough where we can do a lot of education and get the information out there that this, would be starting, technically.
Give a call to the fire department too, I'd like their input, because they probably are the most seriously affected if something major happens.
I mean,
so.
you even see, I know I've had complaints from Waste Management not being able to get the dump truck, the garbage truck.
Garbage truck, yeah.
I mean, and unfortunately, if they, can't get through, they leave, we call them back, well, the city gets charged for that, because they didn't have access.
And now
So
you put a
there's-
monetary cost to it, so, okay. Okay, is there a motion to direct Ryan to work with the attorney, the police department, and the fire department on reviewing our parking ordinance?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Stewart, I'll support that. Further comment or discussion? Hearing none, Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes. Okay, motion carried. Okay, next, R1. R1 is Councilor Kuechly submitted his resignation, attaches the letter along with Resolution 21-41 declaring a vacancy. Recommendations on how to fill a vacancy will be presented at our next council meeting. Ryan, I'm assuming you'll talk to the League of Cities on that. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 21-41?
Also move.
Okay, moved by John. Is there support?
Also,
Support by Stewart. Further comment or question? And the reason for this is moving out of the city limits, so. Okay, Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman?
Yes.
Counselor Marcus?
Yes.
Mayor Clarich?
Yes.
Where's he at this turn? Kigley.
R2 is to have a special council meeting as part of the process on dealing with Minnesota power rates. Is there a motion? Well, Ryan, do you have a recommendation for a date?
I would like, as many of the counselors here for this, 'cause this is something that will affect the city and our residents in a very good way for, the next 8 years if this, comes to a full contract, go to the council, but the council should be briefed before, so I can report back to that group that we're committed. There's 14 others that are doing the same thing as we are. Minnesota Power would like to have these contracts signed by September 1st. Currently, we're in a non-disclosure agreement, so I cannot share any additional information, but I would like to brief the council on where we're at and kind of what we're looking at financially for the next 8 years with
Should we go with first meeting in September?
No, let's get this done as soon as possible.
I mean,
Especially if it's just an update.
Well, we have to know what we're voting on, or agreeing on.
Well, he'll have the information.
Oh, okay.
yeah. I mean, I would say if possible sometime either next week or the following, sometime before July 1st.
Okay, where are we at?
Oh, okay.
Evening meeting, I'm assuming, like 6 o'clock, 6:30,
works for the
whatever?
council.
I'm sure Brandon,
Yeah, that's best for me.
Next week, it would be good?
I can make it happen, yeah.
Okay, Ryan, give us a date, throw one out.
Do you want to do it next Tuesday, the 22nd?
Wait.
Monday, or
No, Tuesday. What time?
whatever, if.
6:30 or?
6:30 is
Earlier,
fine.
if you guys can make it earlier, we can do it.
Tuesday, 6:30?
6:30 is fine.
Yeah, it shouldn't take long.
No.
You're just,
So 6:30 on the 22nd? Work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait while I get this into my phone.
Make a motion. I'll make a motion that we have to do this on Tuesday, the 22nd at 6:30 PM at City Hall.
Is there support?
Support?
Ryan, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter?
Yes.
Counselor Lehman? Counselor Marcus?
yes.
Your charge.
Yes. Let me get this thing in here. Okay, I got 2 meetings that day, so that works. Okay, well,
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
since we accepted the resignation of Mr. Keekly, are we gonna do the same thing as we did last time?
We're gonna check with the League of Cities again, just double check, and we're gonna come back on the 13th. And most likely,
I thought we could maybe do a motion.
no, we'll step at a time. I just wanna run this by the League of Minnesota Cities. Okay, councilors' comments. Stuart, you're up.
Took part in the Rams hiring committee meeting last night. The Rams hired Ida Rukavina, I should say.
Ida. So I always said Ida, but it could be. Go ahead.
So,
You were there.
yeah, we did 4 interviews with candidates and a couple votes, and she come down to the last one, so.
Yeah.
She's gonna be the new executive director of Rams.
I think you made a good choice. I know her well, so, know her father well.
That's all I have.
Okay, Brandon, anything?
Just a thought I've been having. We had some complaints about these construction trucks. And, their GPS, none of their vehicles went over 30 miles an hour. Well, as I drive through, most of our town, some of our streets, 30 miles an hour seems realistic. But you start driving down Jones, over by your place, you drive down these side streets in town, 30 miles an hour seems really fast to me.
Yeah.
It was just a thought of mine, lower that. I don't know.
We're meeting with Casper and John Jamnick on Thursday.
And that is something that's brought up at every construction meeting that they have on. So that anytime a resident calls me or anybody, it gets directly passed on to JPJ, their supervisor on site.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Chisholm PD are made aware, to keep an eye out and things like that.
Well, even not the construction vehicles, even personal vehicles.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't think it's the construction guys as much, but it's other people that are.
Other people.
Driving.
Everybody in general. I mean, if you're on these side streets 30 miles an hour, it's really cranky.
Yeah, and I think there's some of them are going more than 30 miles
Oh,
an
yeah,
hour.
yep. Everybody
Those are the
likes
ones
to
you
push it.
notice.
Well, we
I
can
don't know,
ask
it's
and
just a
talk.
thought.
That's all we can do, but a good point, it's too late if somebody gets in a car accident or if somebody gets hit or whatever.
Exactly. So tone it down, everybody.
Yeah. Good point, yeah. Anything else?
No, that's it.
John?
I was talking about Trump
Trump.
earlier. Trump. I didn't mean that on anybody, but anyhow. we should have a sign-up sheet and let people know that maybe we'd be, in this fall, October or August, September, is grind down tree stumps if you have one in your yard or one in the boulevard. Because I guess the city's gonna be doing that with our trees, so we can make it available to the public. I know the last time we had it is for like $10 or 20, I think it was $10 a stump. We'd go in and actually do the stump. We wouldn't do any cleanup or anything, and if we rutted your yard or whatever with the equipment, that was people's responsibility. But we gave them a pretty decent rate on if they had tree stumps in their yards.
Yards or boulevard?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, we've done that in the past. Two is, we got those signs last year, Trent. Parking signs, no motorized vehicles in the park signs. If you got time, let's maybe get those put up on that Memorial Drive. I can see there's people already parking in the Memorial Drive. And a lot of those people are new people. They don't know that they shouldn't be parking on the grass side of that, Memorial Drive.
Those signs are faded right to white on there too.
Yeah.
The ones I saw.
We did get new signs, we just haven't had time. And then we had some no motorized vehicles in the park, we have some of them. So when you guys catch up, maybe to, put a...
This year we got more kids working.
Okay.
Usually we only have two, but we got more of, because without STS, we got a bigger workload now. And
Yeah, I know.
so that's why I got more kids on this year, just to kind of help us out. We're behind.
That's good.
We're behind on a lot of stuff.
Well, even if we put up those posts someplace, get Owen to go out or Lyle, and I'll help them. Just put posts up, because later on we can come and bolt the sign in there.
Yeah, it's just
I
two
just did
bolts.
locates for the Stubler lots.
Yeah.
So we'll be getting those signs up soon here,
Okay.
but I haven't done anything for the other signs.
That's all I had, was signs and a tree stump, maybe notify people and say we're gonna be doing that and sign up.
Okay, sounds good. Is that it?
Yeah, that's all I had.
Okay, leading into that, Trent, thank you. They had a pretty big disc golf tournament this weekend. It was well attended. They had 70 one day and 90 the other day, and we, much of the chagrin of Ryan and Trent, I did say there was a few holes that we wanted to get weed whacked and brought up stuff, and they helped, because Troy Penzimas was doing it too on his own time, but they did a nice job and a lot of compliments, and people, it's a beautiful course. It's one of the top 10 in the state, and so once again, thanks to the crew for making that happen.
When they have a tournament, don't they charge you to be in it? $10, $15?
I have no idea.
Well, I mean, as far as cleanup, they would have a few bucks to pay somebody to clean it up. I don't know if they charge.
I don't know whose job or response. I wasn't on the city council when they did all of this stuff, and there seems to be a lot of different opinions about who's in charge of maintaining some of that.
That's not documented anywhere?
It is.
Has to do, and now that there's no ice.
Yeah,
Just to clarify, in the past, we have gotten donations to offset some city expenses, whether it be baskets, this or that have come from those players. Since the city used grant dollars to build that part, we cannot charge groups to use it. So, I mean, essentially, if they want to have a tournament to charge for it, that's on them. At the same time, if someone wants to go play in the middle of their tournament, they can go play in the middle of their tournament. It's a public course. They can't restrict access to it.
So the city owns that whole course?
Correct.
So that's the city's, okay.
I don't want to cause trouble, but I mean, it's just, and thanks for doing that and whatever. Okay, mayor's comments. In response to the outcry on Facebook regarding utility bills, here are the facts. Since the beginning of 2020, the utility rates for water, sewer, and electric have not changed. The only adjustments or increases were in two areas. Number one, garbage increased 75 cents as a result of a new contract with Waste Management. We don't have control over that. We have a contract with them, and we have one going on for another, how many years, Ryan? 3?
We just renewed.
3 to 5. So we've got, and once again, that is not set by the city. That is set by Waste Management, offers us, and we negotiate with them and get to a point. But there's not much wiggle room for any of the cities on the Iron Range that deal with Waste Management. It's nothing against Waste Management. It's their cost of doing business also. And then 2, solid waste service fee, which is a fee imposed by St. Louis County, increased by $1.36. That is set by St. Louis County. Once again, that is handed down to us. That ends up on your bill as an additional cost. Simply put, if your bills are going up, it's because you are using more water or electricity. Bottom line, that's the big thing. And I hate to see the electric bills after this last couple of weeks, because I think anybody had an air conditioner, they were going wide open. It also appears that there's still some confusion on utility bills. Utility bills have been explained in the newsletters both this year and in 2020, and most recently in the April 20th, 2021 mayor's comments. The city has done its due diligence to explain how these services are billed, contrary to comments on Facebook. Residents and businesses are billed for all services provided. Residential utility rates are lower than commercial rates. Utility accounts are not identical among residents and businesses. Accounts can have charges for additional meters, non-radio heads, and late fees, just to name a few of the things that can add up that's different from your neighbor. And we cannot compare your rate to your neighbor's rate. That is against the law. That's due to data privacy. If there are specific questions on your personal utility bills, please contact City Hall. The city can only discuss your personal utility bill, once again, due to this data privacy. There have also been many questions regarding the cost of Buhl membership on the Central Iron Range Sanitary Sewer District, the CIRSSD. As a context of CIRSSD, here's a brief history. So I had Ryan go back to the beginning of the Central Iron Range Sanitary Sewer System, which we are now part of. In 2001, the Buhl City Council, consisting of Councilor Matthew, Kafis, Sundich, Polkovich, and Mayor Denny Marks, approved Buhl's participation in a study to explore the formation of a new sewer district. On February 8, 2003, the Buhl City Council, consisting of Councilor Swanson, Plumbon, Matthew, Sundich, and Mayor Craig Pulford, approved a letter supported for the creation of the sewer district. On October 7th of 2003, this same council approved the resolution 3-33 on a 4-1 vote. Matthews opposed to support the enabling legislation to create the Central Iron Range Sanitary Sewer District. The legislation was adopted by the Minnesota State Legislature in December of 2003. 2004 to 2008, studies were being conducted on relevant motions and discussions in all the council meetings on switching from our own plant to one that's shared. And if you remember, it was shared, it was supposed to be Kinney, Great Scott, Chisholm, and Hibbing was in a big part of that. Okay? On September 2nd, 2008, the Buhl City Council, consisting of Councilors White, Swanson, Primo, Matthew, and Mayor Craig Pulford, unanimously approved Resolution 8-25, which reaffirmed Buhl membership in the CIRSSD after Hibbing dropped out of the partnership. 2019 through 2014 was all time for permitting and reviews. On October of 2014, a ribbon cutting ceremony at the CIRSSD was done, and it was fully operational. So that was created, as you can see, 7 going on 8 years ago. I still think it was a good idea what those councilors did. We're running into cities are running into problems with this, and they're really running into the problems with some of the water charge on some of this reverse osmosis, where some of these plants that are in the taconite plant areas may be looking at having to redo their plants. I think, Stuart, you've had that at Rams quite a bit. And to do that, it's $20 to $30 million. So I think, long run, I have not heard that we're in that watershed that's being affected. I haven't heard the CRSSD, which is good. So I think they made a very good decision back then. The decision to join CRSSD then was made long before this current council took office and before a number of cities' current residents even moved to town. In any event, the cost to treat wastewater is extremely expensive. Rules, regulations, and industry standards are constantly changing, and with this comes an increased cost. Unfortunately, this is a cost that is passed on to the residents in every city across Minnesota, including Buhl. Buhl's overall utility rates are still below many of our neighbors and the statewide averages. Yes, water and sewer are higher than some cities due to the fact that we are part of the Central Iron Range Sanitary Sewer District and have a debt service attached to build that new. Otherwise, we would have had to take one on. I think there was a comment in Facebook about that it could have been done for $6 million, which it might well have been done before. But with all the changes, we've been constantly pumping money into keeping that thing up to standards. So I still think that was a good move for that. The city is also in the middle of a $6 million infrastructure project, which we're doing right now. We have no data that suggests replacing our old sewer plant would have been more cost-effective than being a member of the Central Iron Range Sanitary Sewer District. However, residents should take note that the city's electric rates are among the lowest in the state. All of these combined result in an average utility bill still lower than most of the neighboring cities, as mentioned before. The comparison of utility rates has been posted at the post office. It's there and it's even highlighted. And I want to answer the person who had a problem wondering about how much a gallon of water costs. It comes to about 3 cents. And the 3 cents might be a little bit high, but that's because we have to add that cost of CRSSD, the bonding for that, which we will have to be paying for another, I'm assuming 14 years, maybe 15 years, maybe even less than that. But so it's the cost of doing business. And I think I heard even a comment on there, maybe I won't use it or anything. Well, I don't think you can put a well on your own property in town, but John, can you?
What?
Could you put a well on your property in town?
No.
A private well? I don't think so.
No.
I think it would probably cost you a fortune.
Municipality kind of obligated to be hooked up to the municipal structure.
And I just want to remind everybody, it still is the finest water in America. Residents in town who have a pool or hot tubs pay the water and sewer fees for what it takes to fill out their pools up. And they still get charged for the sewer, even though they do not dump that water into the sewer. So whether they have a little splash pool, or you have an in-ground pool, or an above-ground pool. So I know there was a comment on Facebook concerning that. There's no one-time credit to fill your pool or do anything like that. I don't know where that comment came from. Residents in town who have an above in-ground or portable pools pay both sewer and water, though the water does not enter the sewer system. So it's almost a double penalty when you fill up the little 50-gallon splash pool for the children. As of last week, all lots in Stubbler development have been sold. The city is aggressively exploring options to develop other areas in the city for new housing. The city is aggressively pursuing developing behind the school and on the south end of the park where the vacant baseball fields are. Initial cost for development of the lots behind the school is $2 to $3 million. Developments of lots near the park is around $300,000. The city has no intent to infringe upon Burton Park for future expansion. The city is actively trying to enhance the current Burton Park, as well as creating a sliding hill on the east end of town. The Recreation Board has openings for anyone interested in serving on the community. And there's also a Burton Park committee that is working on trying to get other equipment put into the current Burton Park. And then once again, just to relate to something we said, due to congestion on city streets, the city is seriously considering a year-round calendar parking due to vehicles, trailers, motorhomes, restricting areas for emergency vehicles and regular traffic. This is based upon advice of city officials, police officers, emergency personnel, and fire and police departments. That is all I have for mayor's comments. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Finally, motion by Brad. Is there support?
I'll support that.
Support by John.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Stuart.
with your discussion of the sewer plant, thank you very much for the timeline. For the rhetoric of that sewer plant, the cost for the city of Buhl to build the sewer plant it would have been, if we wouldn't have gone in with Chisholm, and then Hibbing backed out, so they made that thing to handle 3 towns.
Yeah.
So it was a little extra cost probably for that, but.
Just for mercury alone was.
And the mercury, after they.
Would have
built that,
bankrupted us.
It would have. Can you imagine the city of Buhl?
I appreciate people's opinions and whatnot, even though some are slightly misguided, so I try to provide just some rhetoric here to what's going on. So our next meeting is July 13th, and we're going to be talking about potential development of other properties for homes. Anything else from anybody?
I have something.
Go ahead.
Since we're on that subject, there's a charge on our utility bills for the building of that plant, correct?
Yeah.
There's a bond out there that we have to pay off.
Okay, so is there a time period, a timeline of when that plant will be paid for in full?
When was it operational? 2014?
2014.
I'm assuming it's a 20-year bond. So
Okay,
there's probably roughly 15, 14 years left. We can find that out.
Yeah,
Brian and I are both on the board for the CRSSD.
I was just curious.
It might even be, it might be close to a 40-year bond. I'm not.
Or 40, I don't know. It was,
I'd have to double check on that.
they did get a lot of funds to help offset the initial cost of that.
That's awesome.
But Stewart's on top of this because Rams is right in the middle of some of this, with these
that's right.
water treatment plants, with what's going on with the mining industry and the Native Americans complaining about the
Anything
sulfate
new.
standards and,
Anything new now, I think, is gonna have to be almost reverse osmosis, and
Yeah.
that's astronomical.
it's in the million, it's in the 20 million minimum for a
And
little.
then what do you do with the brine of the?
Yeah.
Just stupid.
It's a tough process. Anything else? Brian, please take the roll.
Counselor Carter.
Yes.
Counselor Lehman.
Yes.
Counselor Marcus.
Yes.
Mayor Claridge.
Yes, meeting adjourned, 8:40. Well, you